Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 37 here at the Tavern, presented by HeroTaku.com. And once again, I am joined by my illustrious colleague, Raptor.
Yep, good to be here as usual.
Yes. Now, before we get started with today's topic, Raptor, you are made aware, and I'm sure everybody who is a subscriber to my channel is aware of the issue I'm having with the copyright strike and the 15-minute limit. So, just to give you guys a head up, this video will be artificially made into 2, 3, however many videos it'll take to get this whole thing done. But I will also mention to everybody that I will make an attempt to create an audio file all by itself without any video to it and try to have a downloaded link for you guys. So if you would like to listen to the Tavern uninterrupted, that option will be there for you.
Yeah, probably have a link below, I don't know.
Once I figure that out, and since Thanksgiving break is this week, I have all night to figure that out. I got nothing to do tomorrow.
Envious.
Yes. Well, Raptor, what are we talking about tonight?
All right, tonight, this is a suggestion by a friend of ours named Sincere McMichael, and he wanted us to talk about the gap in between the end of Zeo and Turbo, a Power Rangers movie.
Yes, because the interesting thing about it, there is nothing there. You watch the last episode of Zeo, and things kind of wrap up. King Mondo is destroyed by Zed. Rita and Zed say, hey, we're coming back now. Bulk and Skull go off to France on some secret mission. And everything looks hunky-dory. Jason lost his powers and got with Emily and all that kind of stuff. And then suddenly, like that, there's a movie and no explanation of anything on how we got to that point.
Yeah, there was exactly one reference to the Zeo powers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was only for a few seconds. And other than that, nothing.
Yes, because basically what that happened is they went into the movie. They went in knowing that it's from Zeo. Don't make any real reference to Zeo. It almost seems like a reboot in that regard, I guess.
Soft reboot,
yeah. But there's no explanation of things such as why are the Zeo Zords not as powerful to defeat Malagor? Why did Jason leave Angel Grove when he really didn't? Why did Zed and Rita not return? All these questions, that have been around since that period. And what Raptor and I are going to go ahead and do is we're going to talk primarily about, what kind of happened, what kind of speculation that we've heard. Specifically, we will talk about Scorpion Reign, kind of in broad strokes, and then just kind of give our opinion on the whole matter.
Now, it's worth noting that from a production standpoint, the reason that the references to Zeo were minimal was because they wanted to attract lapsed fans back to the movie, and so they decided to minimize continuity references and give the movie, for the most part, a blank slate.
Yes, and I think they succeeded in that, but I think it only alienated long-term fans. Because let's keep in mind, Power Rangers have been around for about 4 years at this point, and I don't know what a child's retention is nowadays. But you know what? Until my brother, who was actually leaving Power Rangers because he was in the Beetleborgs, of all things at the time, he was able to follow the movie, even though he didn't really follow Zeo, obviously they did that, but the question I would have is, why didn't they have anything after Zeo? Obviously, they have full episode count, and they left it on, I wouldn't so much say as a cliffhanger as what DS9 would say, a promise of things to come, particularly Zed and Rita coming back.
Yes.
They didn't lose any of their powers, other than Jason, but that was just given back to Trey. They didn't lose any Zords. They didn't use any Zords in that last episode.
Yeah, strangely enough.
Yeah, and it did not feel like an actual ending to Zeo as much as an ending to Jason's return to Power Rangers.
Yeah, and to a lesser extent, the end of the Machine Empire.
Yes, and that is a major thing, but to be honest, didn't really feel like it at the time. As somebody who watched it during its live broadcast, I didn't feel like, oh, we're never going to see these guys again. I knew we would see them at some point.
Well, that's because within the series itself, a standard was set for rebuilding.
Exactly, because that had happened to Mondo previously, just took a long time. And of course, they were conscious at the end. They were able to talk smack to Lord Zed, basically. But, Raptor, given the movie, so the movie did its own approach. But why do you think that there was this gap? Why is it that you think that they didn't have an episode that led into the movie? Like an episode says, to be continued in Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. Because they did that with Power Rangers and Turbo and Power Rangers in Space. To be continued in Power Rangers in Space.
Right. And I think that was mostly because the decision to minimize continuity references was made after the time when they would have made a to be continued episode.
So you're saying that they had already written and produced the episode, but by the time it came to write and produce the movie, they decided to eliminate references?
Yes, my general idea is that when they completed Good as Gold, they were set on the idea that they would bridge it within Turbo. But then when Turbo went into production, and when Good as Gold had probably already been aired, they decided, nah, we're going to back off from that continuity thing.
Now here's the thing, is that I don't have much to say because this is really all speculation, because I have never heard of any, I've never heard of any official word as to why. And that's the weird thing about this topic, is that it's brought up, but nobody really talks about it except for Scorpion Ring, which we'll get to here in a minute. And, we're in the age of the internet where there are people who interview actors and producers now, and it's never a question that I hear from interviews.
There was one reference to it from Johnny Young Bosch. He stated in an interview that the original cut of the movie was over 3 hours long and featured a battle where the Zeo Zords were destroyed.
Yeah, now we mentioned that when we did the Turbo commentary. But would you say that battle would necessitate? I can't talk tonight. Would that be enough in a 3-hour cut to really explain everything? Because I almost feel that with all that was set up, it would need an episode or two, and you couldn't jam that into a movie.
I think you honestly take out some of that filler in the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of filler,
and you could have a nice 10 to 20 minute sequence where Divatox does a full-scale attack, sends out a giant monster, and then the Rangers call the Zeo Zords. The Zeo Zords get trashed, and then that necessitates new powers.
But I also wonder what the producers thought, because, again, in film school, we go into screenwriting, and we understand that there are certain things you have to do to bring your audience in, to catch your audience up to speed if it's an ongoing series. Now, nobody can convince me that Turbo was meant to be a fresh starting point for fans, simply because of the baggage that it brings along with it. And I don't necessarily see that as being, again, a good starting point. I mean, here's the thing. If they intended not to do anything with Zeo and then go into the movie, it should have been a complete break somehow. I don't know how you would do that, but the movie is made in such a way that there is no complete break. That we do have these elements that are left over that we have to explain away in the movie without explaining them away.
Yes. Honestly, that clean break they were looking for, they got that halfway through the series.
And here's another thing. Here's another thought as well. Does a 3-hour cut necessarily tell us why there's a new command center? Why Alpha has a different look? Could a 3-hour cut explain why Bulk and Skull didn't go to France? Hell, a throwaway line would have been appreciated in that subplot.
Yeah. All right. You remind me of something. Let's take a moment to list out everything that was unaccounted for by the time that Turbo was released.
Okay, well, there's Jason's status. I mean, it's indicated he left Angel Grove at the end of Zeo and doesn't really have a good reason because, again, he's got Emily, wants to stay with Emily, so that's one thing. Bulk and Skull were offered to go to Paris and be undercover operas with Inspector Clouseau, which is a great joke when you're older and think about it. The Machine Empire was destroyed, and Lord Zed and Rita said that they would be back.
And I think that was it.
That was about it. Those are like three major things that should be followed up on in something. Because here's the thing: if they would have done our episode, Jason would have just disappeared because he was a full regular at that point in the series.
Yes. So then, come Turbo, we have Jason returning to Angel Grove as if he had left.
However long it's been.
Bulk and Skull are back with no mention of their mission.
And somehow rehired on the police force, despite the fact that in Bulk fiction they got fired. I don't know why they're not back in the detective's office, because that's what Stone was doing at the time, is he was detective, which I thought that was a lot better than them being police officers. I love their detective subplot.
And yeah, then of course we have minimal references to the Zeo powers and the Zeo Zords.
The Machine Empire's not in there. Rita and Zed make a 1 minute cameo.
Yeah, 1 minute cameo where they never followed up in the slightest on their return.
Exactly. So I mean, you have things that you established, and I know it's by two different writers and obviously two different production crews, but somebody wasn't getting the memos, I think. I almost feel that there was no communication that led to this, that maybe they felt Zeo was in a different point to where it was, to where maybe the film was written before they had a clear idea of what good as Gold would be like.
And that's entirely possible. I mean...
And unfortunate, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, we probably should have checked the dates, because if you think about the time it takes to produce and shoot a movie, and if we line that up with when Good as Gold was aired...
Well, considering Good as Gold, Steve Cardenas does not appear in the episode except morphed. There is a line of dialogue saying that he's away at karate camp.
Yes, and...
So, I mean, you can even tell at the tail end of Zeo, there are a handful of episodes in which Rocky is not present or plays a minimal role in it.
Right, and that was, of course, because he injured himself. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
Most fans know this. Moving on.
Yeah. So, there isn't too much to go ahead and speculate on this matter. So, what I would like to go ahead and do is let's go ahead and talk about Scorpion Reign.
Yes.
And we will go ahead and talk about Scorpion Reign in part 2 of the video. So, see you guys in part 2.